Hello and welcome to Montemor-o-Novo, a small Alentejo town just an hour out of Lisbon. I'm Anna and this is the third stop on our big Portuguese wine adventure. We're standing looking at the Mountain of the Moors, the hill with the castle first built by Muslim invaders, which gives Montemor town its name.
In the early 700s, a Muslim conquest from North Africa swept through the Iberian Peninsula and remained for more than 400 years, until the first king of Portugal and the Christian knights drove the leaders out and built a new castle. I'm Al and I love disappearing down historical rabbit holes.
This place is now famous for being the Portuguese home of Chinese dissident artist Ai Weiwei. But the reason we're here is to take our wine knowledge to the next level by heading down this small winding dirt road to a place called Plancel.
They not only make wine, but they have a nursery producing hundreds of thousands of Portuguese grapevines every year. And with our madcap plan to plant our own vineyard, this is a great place to start learning about grapes, grafting, and the pesky insect that destroyed Europe's vineyards in the 19th century and still bugs them today.
Isn't that a nice sound?
It's a great sound. There it is.
This episode we're enjoying a long lunch, meeting a couple of new grape varieties and going into the classroom to start our formal wine training.
Plancel's story is a great story of a shipwreck in the 1960s that brought a young German from an old wine family to Portugal and transformed its winemaking from the roots up.
And how his daughter and granddaughters have followed in his footsteps to produce single grape wines and make Alentejo bubbly, like they do in the Champagne region of France.
But first, to introduce the winery and get a bit of history before meeting the family, enology expert Kevin volunteered to show us around.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm happy to welcome you at the Quinta Plancel here in Alentejo region. Montemor is the city, and
lots of dogs, which is always good. Yeah. So tell us about the history of the vineyard.
Yeah, so the winery was founded by Dorina in 1997.
He's talking about Dorina Lindemann, the main driving force behind the winery and the second generation.
Her father came here to found a wine nursery, to take some research on the Portuguese vineyards, or the grape varieties actually, because before they were just like mixed vineyards. And
Hans-Jörg Boom was disappointed by the quality of the bulk wines he was importing to Germany, so decided to make a difference.
He was one of the first to do a selection and to plant like monovarietal vineyards. He took the German structure and brought it to Portugal kind of in the 70s.
He was a man with a passion, built on generations of German winemaking. He played a huge role, writing weighty books about the classification of Portugal's wine grapes.
And when Dorina followed her father's steps, after she finished her studies in Geisenheim in viticultural studies, she came here and looked around and was like, okay, this is pretty nice, but I don't want to do just the research part, I also want to produce my own wine. So she founded her own winery.
It was here, right next to the nursery. And 25 years ago, she was a true innovator when she chose to make both a single variety red wine and something very new.
She was the first one to produce a spumante, like a sparkling wine, made the traditional Metodo Classico, how it's called here. You may also know it as the Méthode Champenoise from the Champagne region. It was a tough challenge for her, but she managed to deal with it, and now we're lucky to see all of the 70 hectares around us. So the winery really developed and grew a lot. So let's take a look inside of the winery, I'd say. A small part of the 70 hectares used for the plant nursery, because we grow our own American roots for the basement.
Yeah.
And we'll just have a look inside the sparkling wine production.
Okay. Coming into a darkened room. There's a reason for it being dark in here, presumably, no?
So in front of us you can see two wooden boards in form of an inverted V. or how would you describe it? And there are many holes inside, so you can stick the bottle with the head upside down inside these wooden boards.
I was looking at it and I was thinking, wow, this is an A-frame sparkling nursery. We're standing and we're looking at all of these upside down bottles in A-frames, and it feels almost a little bit holy to be in here, because we know these are all in waiting to become something fantastic.
They've got the like tops you have on beer bottles to start with, having the metal tops.
Yeah.
So the French back then made the very innovative process of Méthode Clásico, how they call it in Portugal.
Kevin explained the process of making champagne-style wines, or espumante as they're called in Portugal. Still wine is put in a thicker bottle with some yeast to ferment a second time.
After 9 months or so, bubbles of CO2 gas have built up in the bottle, but a yeast residue remains, and nobody wants that in their sparkling wine.
So they use the A-frame boards to tilt and turn the bottles.
Twice or 3 times a day for 2 weeks. It's looking like this, I'm showing it to you. Then you shake it against the wooden frame and turn it by 1/4.
Gradually increasing the angle towards the vertical so the yeast settles in the bottleneck.
After the 2 weeks, it's completely on top of the head of the closure. We can start with the disgorging process, which means that we have very cold gas, so it freezes, and as soon as we open the closure, the yeast will come out because of the pressure that is inside the bottle.
Only the liquid with the sediment freezes, and then they open the bottle. The ice cube of yeast is forced out, they add a little dosage, some extra liquid to top it up, and then quickly put in the champagne cork and the little wire thingy.
I have a question, because there's so many bottles here, and this is kind of an analog system. Looks very cool. And you said that you turn them a quarter. Mm-hmm. Is that manual? So all of these are turned by a person?
Yeah.
Wow.
Twice a day.
Wow.
And as I told you, Dorina was the very first to implement the traditional sparkling winemaking in the Alentejo region.
And you've been making sparkling wines for 25 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hello, my name is Dorina Lindemann. I'm the CEO and founder from Quinta de Plantel. I have a big passion for the Portuguese grape varieties. So if you ever want to know something about Portugal and a special taste about the grape varieties, come and speak with me. And my future passion is to introduce my daughters to the world of wine, to understand what is really investigation, passion, taste, power, everything a little bit. So you see, I'm completely distracted by the Portuguese country and by the Portuguese people. My mom is German. My dad is also native German, but he came over to Portugal after revolution. And I emigrated in '93, and I never regret. Portugal is my home country. I love to live here. I love the mentality, and I really believe on the original grape varieties in Portugal.
You've probably already picked up just how passionate Dorina Lindemann is about what she does. But we needed to hear a bit more from her father before we start learning about and sampling some of those grapes.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. Hello, very nice to meet you. Alistair. Hans-Jörg Bohm, now in his 80s, was born into a big German wine family. He's even more passionate about the vines than the wines they produce.
Jörg set up his nursery to identify which Portuguese wine grapes would grow best in Alentejo by studying them and experimenting with crossbreeding.
So you have a lot of different indigenous Portuguese grapes here in your nursery. How many do you have, and why do you have such a large collection?
Portugal has officially 340 different varieties in the national catalogue of grapevine varieties. But there are very few, about 80, 90, who really are studied and where we have knowledge about the type of wine and so on. When I came to Portugal, it's a long story I will tell you later.
Yes.
I went into the nursery business because I was a wine producer in Germany, and I was shocked by the change of quality of wine when I was importing. And so the wine was completely unstable, and this was no basis. And so was in this time my idea to collaborate with the Portuguese government and to start with clonal breeding, selecting varieties and transform that variety in wines.
So with the winemaking universities of Évora in Alentejo and Geisenheim in Germany, they made wines from 40 of the varieties.
And then took them to wine experts around the world to try, including Jancis Robinson, then director of the Masters of Wine in London.
We started to select these varieties, the best varieties, in the test of Jancis Robinson, Master of Wine. The same happened with the German, but there was no difference. The result has been always the same. The Touriga Nacional was normally the best. And we started then to build up these varieties in different forms.
They spent years planting them at this nursery, cloning them, and trying to make the best possible wines from them.
Not easy, because we discovered every grapevine in Europe needs to be grafted to an American root in order to survive.
Okay, we will show now a little bit about the plant production. Let's go to the nursery.
Great, thank you. So what's the process in here? How does it work?
The process of grapevine production is a technology which has been developed beginning of the last century by so-called grafted plants. Grafted plants are done, you can see it here, by having a rootstock of about 40 to 55 centimeters. We have a graft with just one eye, which is by this machine automatically cut and introduced with a so-called omega cut, and so it doesn't fall out. You see here, this is a rootstock and this is a variety. It may be a Touriga Nacional or one of the Portuguese varieties. And this is the first step in the production process.
It's amazing how that cut, the S,
Yes.
joins it together, isn't it?
It's a perfect joint. It looks amazing.
The second step is to join wax to avoid the dehydration.
So you're dipping the ends,
We are dipping
the
just-
small bits.
Just the junction place into the wax so that it is closed and can't dry out.
Got you, okay. So the grafted plants are only a tiny bit on the end of a very long rootstock, and then it's those tips which are dipped in this red wax.
And that is to seal it so that it can forge perfectly.
The grafting will join the callus, and so the two build a little Frankenstein.
There's lots of little Frankensteins being made around here at the moment. This is an incredible scale of production.
Oh,
People are doing so much at once. How many do you do in one season?
Maybe 1.5 million of grafting. 1.5 million, 2 million. The rootstock are American origin gene material, which is resistant to the phylloxera. Phylloxera is a little insect who is biting the root and the plant dies.
We have to craft them. That's a misery effect because we have the phylloxera. Since we got the phylloxera in the 19th centuries from America, they came in with American grape varieties. Nothing to do. It's an animal, just goes to the roots, and our native plants, Vitis viniferas, are not able to live with that animal. They're going to die. But the American rootstock, in fact, they can live both together. We don't know even why. We didn't find out yet a genetic code for that, but they can live together. So that means we are using nowadays the American rootstock, and we just craft our variety we would like to have the fruits from. We craft on top of it. So we have to look for different clones. I think we have to find the natural ones. And I think that's the future. That's the future for us winemaker. Mm-hmm. At first, to find a variety is adapting to all kinds of soils, to go to the different regions, the extreme regions, and to find adapted clones. That's a little bit my opinion about the future of the wine world. Touriga Nacional, yes, you definitely can plant Touriga Nacional all over the world. It makes different wines. So if you're in a very cool area, if you live in a very cool area, so you will get much more the flower notes and less complexity and the tannins. So you will have more fresh, easy drinking red wines with Touriga Nacional. If you go to more hotter zones, you will get a very complex and very powerful Touriga Nacional. So it depends a little bit. It makes always good wine, but with different characters, personalities.
And this is something that you've dedicated your life to here, and your father before you has dedicated or continues to dedicate his life to. Tell me about the varieties, the numbers that you have here.
You know, Portugal has got around 380, 385 native grape varieties. And I think we still didn't find them all. So we're still discovering new ones. So that's interesting.
It certainly is. 380 native grape varieties. That's a number worth a clink and a think about.
It's one of Portugal's biggest assets, but also one of its challenges. New wine drinkers are looking for something new and exciting and different, and Touriga Nacional fits the bill.
But wine lovers also want to grab a bottle of something they like, and that's hard when you can't pronounce the grape name, let alone know how it compares to something like a Cabernet Sauvignon.
If you want to be a successful grape in the heat of Alentejo, you need to have a thick skin to protect you from the sun. That goes for Touriga Nacional as well as Arinto and other grapes we'll discover.
Despite Bordeaux's tough wine laws to protect the quality of their powerful red blends, Touriga Nacional has been invited into their vineyards for its drought resistance as they're planning ahead.
Opa, I think you can sit here. Maybe you here.
Dorina's daughter Julia showed us to our seats for lunch with her grandfather to hear his story and learn more about Dorina's winemaking.
Do you also want to try some wines with the lunch?
We'd love to do some wine tasting with if we can. That would be great.
How beautiful. Look at this.
Yeah. So what's this first wine that we're trying?
The basic wine is Arinto, which is a variety quite similar to Riesling. But a modern white wine needs to be fresh and have some flower or some fruit character. Though I come from a Riesling area, I come from the Rhine Valley, I selected with preference Arinto, and I'm very happy that my daughter is using it.
So you must tell us the story of how you arrived here.
I came by a sailing boat here.
That sounds like it was a very long time ago.
It was in Windjammer. It was a tiny fisher boat.
Okay, so a windjammer is a proper sailing boat, which would sail to Canada and back from France fishing for tuna.
And then we wanted to sail to the Seychelles Island. And this time, 70 years ago, it was the dream of all men to go to Seychelles.
So they set off from Brittany to northern Spain with the Indian Ocean in their sights.
But they'd only got as far as Cascais near Lisbon when they hit trouble.
It was very windy, and in the harbour at night, a fisher boat was damaging our boat. And so I came to Portugal. It was never meant to come here.
That's fate, huh?
I think it probably was meant to be, wasn't it?
Oh, we're glad that it happened. Maybe not at the time.
No question. I like to stay in Portugal, and you see that I'm still here.
And that's when he discovered Portuguese wine and started importing it to Germany.
I entered in the family company, which was one of the leading grape wine producer in Germany.
It was called Hock and was famous for the light German wine.
And we had been quite successful. We are selling many millions of bottles to England and to the United States. But then in the year of late 70 came a big crisis in the wine business. And I gave up. I sold the company.
That sparked the move to Portugal and the work on improving the quality of the grapes and the wines.
Portugal had in very early times a very special contract with the United Kingdom.
So when the English fell out with the French, they had to go somewhere else for wine. That place was Portugal.
And for a certain time it was decided that Portugal will produce wine and England will produce textiles. And in this time, the Alentejo had more than 100,000 hectares of grapevine already. It's unbelievable. 100,000 hectares of grapevine.
And that was peak wine for Alentejo, as after that the area of vines was cut back dramatically.
When I came, we had about 7,000 hectares of grapevine in Alentejo. But the people understood that we could make better wine than it has been done before by controlled fermentation and by selecting the best varieties. And therefore, a lot of people invested, and the wine area grew up from 7,000 hectares to 23,000 now.
And much of that growth was thanks to a Portuguese grape Jorge helped to establish.
Now we have the Touriga Nacional in our class,
And it's become a Portuguese favourite.
which is the first monovarietal we're trying right now.
How important do you think Touriga Nacional is to Portugal as a national grape?
When I came, there has been less than 800 hectares of Touriga Nacional.
Wow.
And I think it is coming near to 10,000 now.
Wow.
It is one of the 3-4 more important variety on volume. On quality, I think we have an enormous potential, and it is adapting in different way to different climate zones.
Can I take your plate?
My name is Julia. I'm the oldest daughter from Dorina. I study marketing in Lisbon, and now I'm official working in the Quinta de Plancel since 2018, and I'm doing more the wine tastings, the websites, social media, so a little bit of everything of marketing I'm doing. I can say about my sister too. So my sister is the youngest. She studied in Geisheim too, like my grandfather, my father, my mother. She studied winemaking.
You followed the family tradition of many generations. Why? Is it just in the blood?
Yeah, I think so. No, I was born here in Portugal. Me and my sister were only ones born here, and yeah, we lived here our whole life. And I think to see my mother, my grandfather, my father working in this area, it makes us fall in love since we are children. So I think that's good.
And what's your approach to the vineyard then, as the marketing target? What is it you want to do? What's the big
So
picture?
first of all, I want that Plancel would be very famous in Portugal, because we are better in export now, more for Germany and in the Switzerland. So I'm very concentrated to put Plancel, not only the plants, the vineyards, but the wine too. I think it's very interesting that Portugal knows the work that my grandfather and my mother did.
Dear students, welcome to Plancel. I'm so happy that you came here to my fantastic Quinta de Plancel. I think you have a fantastic teacher, Wilmi Maton. And I wish you really good luck for the exam, but I believe you all will make it. Thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Okay, class, I have a tip for you today. If you don't want to taste so much wine, just take 2 sips to have an indication. Sniffing will also do the trick here. My name is Wilmi Maton. I became a wine teacher because I want to tell them everything about the Portuguese grape varieties.
You seem to have a lot of... I've looked at your class today. It seems to be people from all over the world.
Yeah, it's called Plancel International Wine School, and people from all over the world come to study with us the levels from WSET.
That stands for the Wine and Spirit Educational Trust, and it has schools all over the world.
We even signed up for levels 1 and 2 to improve our knowledge, and we're invited along today to learn by tasting.
WSET was founded in 1969 because they thought there should be a standardization in making tasting notes so that you can build up a file in your head and you have an international way of describing wine, the systematic approach of tasting.
So we have a clear wine. The intensity is pronounced.
In general, what we want to do is to seek for the aroma characteristics for this wine. We seek for the primary aromas, and these come from the fruit, from the grape.
So you have red fruit, some black fruit.
Then we seek for the secondary aromas. They come from winemaking techniques.
In the nose, you can see all the wood, so it's smoky. I think the smoky is very pronounced.
And then the most important thing, we can make a conclusion out of it.
So it's a dry wine. It's very, very good intensity, complexity, and I think it is a great finish. Very good wine, very gastronomic wine.
I'm Bruno. I just made the Double Set 2. I worked 10 years in the wine business, so always in wine tourism. Now I'm in my own company that I sell wine experience. And it was a big opportunity to know wine regions all over the world. I'm very Portuguese, so I love my Portuguese wines, but it was a way to comparing what the rest of the world is doing.
Thank you so much for the interview, you two.
Thanks for having us along. It's been a pleasure. It's been lovely.
Such a fun, wonderful, and seriously, it's hard, huh?
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
It's tough.
The thing I found the most difficult, I think you perhaps did as well. I don't think we've ever tasted wine and spat it out before.
No, we didn't.
Oh, of course we have.
I can't remember. We're just learning too, you see. So we're used to go, oh, well, yeah, it's got on wine tastings and drinking it. But of course, after 3 or 4, you're not going to be able to taste it, are you?
No. If I don't spit, I can't make it through the day. So therefore we spit.
Yeah, we wouldn't have made it through the day today, let alone drive home.
End up in hospital.
Right then,
Yes, we are ready.
so we're ready. Well, perhaps we should pour the wine and hear about that first before we...
I think we should definitely do so, yeah. It's a brand new label here.
Okay.
So that's for my private brand, that's Dorina Lindemann, what I'm doing with my daughters. So it's a native grape variety, the name is Arinto. You find them all over Portugal. What is special on Arinto? You have very small berries with a very thick skin. So even if it's get outside to 45, 50 degrees, you don't have a problem with burning. So it's absolutely resistant against sunburning. What's number one, very important for that region. And the second part is you hold the acidity. So that makes Arinto so special for these hot areas. It's outstanding.
So you've done a lot of... Well, sorry, you should... Correct, where we interrupted you again from pouring some wine.
Oh, again from pouring some wine. So we have to pour the wine, yeah?
Sorry.
Have to pour a little bit of that wine.
Now you've talked about it.
The first impression is freshness. Freshness, and you get a kind of minerality, but it's not normal for our areas. It's a little bit the secret of the terroir we have here. So you have the citrus, very fresh, and this continues on the mouth. Citrus, lemon, some peach.
It's amazing.
It's more European fruits. You get a little bit the touch of the oak because we worked 3 months a little bit on oak for Alentejo. Very fresh, nice drinking wine.
When did you move here, at what age, and what happened after that?
I finished university in '93 and I came here immediately because I had, you know, when I started winemaking, when I started enology, we had 99% men. Still nowadays, I think the wine business is dominated by men. It is. But I think also we have our path, we have our chance, because we make wine a little bit in a different way. It's sometimes more aromatic, a little bit more elegant, and a different way. I think women are doing wine in a different way than men, but I think that's okay.
I mean, you're a champion and a pioneer here, but you also have brought your both daughters into your business. So how is that working?
That's great.
Yeah.
Just awesome. You know, I lost my husband very early. So I just reached 40 years when my husband died on a cancer. And I had two very young girls with 13 and 15. It was very difficult for me to educate them. It was a very hard time. I was really a difficult time. And I never forced my daughters to go into the business. I told them, do something else. It surprised me so extremely when my smallest one told me 10 years ago, oh, Mom, I'm going to study now enology. And I'm going to Germany, as you have been, and as my grandfather has been there, to study in Geisenheim University. I thought it was outstanding. I really loved it, and she's a great winemaker. And the second one, Julia, is completely homestanding. So she just wants to stay in Portugal. She doesn't want to go out of Portugal. So it's her home here. She never liked traveling. She never liked to go out. But she likes to do kind of marketing work in wine tastings and event management. So I have two plots here, fantastic ones. One is doing the management of sale, and the other one is going to do the production way. So I think it's perfect for me. And
you couldn't have planned it any better, could you?
Yeah, I could have planned it any better. Yeah, that's it. And that's the reason why I'm so happy while I'm here, why I'm forced myself, and I really want to push still the company, because I think that's the only way we can survive, to bring the family in.
And your father, we had lunch with him last time we were here, and he's
fantastic.
still so much into trying to develop varietals or clones that are going to work in drought and are going to do
That's
different
my father,
things.
that's not me. He goes to Spain in the heat. He's going to measure the berries. He's going to taste them to make all the tricky things like acidity, pH controlling, a new line, a new clone to test them. That's my father.
We did never overcome the diseases. And these diseases destroyed the European wine culture for half a century. We reacted not by finding variety which are resistant. We reacted just by an excess of chemical intervention. And chemical intervention is not the solution, because it's destroying the bees and 1,000 other things, and this cannot be a solution. This was for 100 years a solution, but it's not the future, and that's why I'm working on that. I think this is important to maintain a more or less natural growing culture.
What a fascinating lesson in grapevines. I think we'll need to explore this idea of natural growing culture later in the series. But for now, we've run out of time.
We learnt so much about how the grafting of grapevines works, and more about some unfamiliar names like Touriga Nacional and Arinto.
I now know how to make champagne and sparkling wine, at least in theory, and I've bought the WSET course book to start working on a wine qualification.
Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to Dorina and Julia Lindemann, to Kevin for showing us around, and of course to Jorge for his time and his wisdom.
We're going back to Roman times and Roman wines next episode. I do hope you'll join us on the next stage of our big Portuguese wine adventure.
Do tell your friends and discover a lot more we couldn't fit in the episode by going to our website. Bye for now.